Hello, and welcome to this pop-up podcast from The Devil in Detail. I'm Rob Parkinson, and I'm here talking all things Salford Devils. Paul Parkin is here with me as well, but we're also joined by a special guest, Salford Devils Managing Director, Paul King. Welcome to the show, Paul. Looking forward to talk all things Salford Devils and all the big news from the last couple of weeks.
Hi, Rob. Hope you're well. Paul?
Yeah, very well. Very keen to see what we've got. It's been an exciting couple of weeks, and yet I get the slight feeling that none of us actually know what we're excited for. So that's why you're here to put some clarity on everything.
Try and shed a bit of light on it, and then I'm going to bed and get some sleep. I'm absolutely shattered with it, but we'll get there. Fire away, Rob. What you got for me?
Yeah, obviously, congratulations on getting the stadium deal to this stage. Sort of, how does it feel to be near to the end of the journey now?
Yeah, it's positive. It's a really positive step forward. I think I've said that before, but there's still work to be done. We're not out of the woods just yet. There's a couple of I's to dot on, a few T's to cross in a number of areas. The stadium deal. So what the council have said is that they've now approved the purchase of it. They've got to go through a negotiating phase. I'm guessing the vast majority of that's already been done in the background. So there's a deal to be done with Peel, and once that's done, Wayland's way and we're away with it. So it's a massive step in the right direction. I'm not risk averse. I'm quite a bold individual as it happens, but you know who you're dealing with here when it comes to the stadium. So we just got to be a little bit careful and steady away.
Yeah,
but
obviously
we've got a good reason to be a bit excitable, I think.
Yeah, obviously, you know, it's been a journey. You've gone through this process. You've been quite bold in your sort of negotiation tactics in the media. Was there ever a point where you thought might have gone a bit too far here?
I think it's human instinct to question yourself, have moments of self-doubt, all that kind of thing. But I'm quite a driven individual. It's something I'm passionate about. It's one of those strange things, isn't it? I think I'm quite good at doing this. If it was Bristol City, I'd be bang average. I'm normally quite good when it's something that I'm passionate about. If I'm not passionate about, I'm not driven. I'm quite a lazy individual. In truth, that's why I'm fat. But it's one of those things that I'm really driven about it. I want to see it through to the end. There's all kinds of Freud would have an absolute nightmare of a time analysing me. There's all kinds of reasons why I'm doing it. Most of them are pretty weird, dead people and all that kind of thing. But I'm driven by it. I'm driven to get it to its conclusion. And the conclusion is that we are a self-sustaining rugby league club. No more, no less. We've got to look after ourselves. Nobody wants us to be cap in hand and all the rest of that. There's a lot of... Nearly swore then. Oh, well, a little bit. A lot of bullshit narrative around, to be fair. They don't pay rent. That's a lie. That's always been a lie. We pay more rent now than we've ever paid under the previous millionaire owners at this stadium. So I'm quite proud of that we do that. We hold our end up. And the flip to that narrative is that when the deal was done 12 years ago, there were certain things that were supposed to go one way in terms of rental agreements, certain things that were supposed to go the other way in terms of other factors that were supposed to be to the benefit of the club. There are no good guys here. None of it happened. So, so let's flush that narrative out. We're not the bad guys. It's not that we've withheld rent or anything like that. It's just we now pay a reasonable rent for what we get, I believe. So yeah, it's. I think there have been moments of doubt. There have been moments where I've wondered whether I've gone too heavy. I am. It's me. That's my style. It's a fait accompli negotiating style. I know what I'm doing. I think I'm okay at it, and they know me well. I've been doing this for nearly 4 years now, guys. This whole stadium deal's 3. It's 3 years-ish since they said that what was going to happen was going to happen, and I've been through it all. I've been and visited Moor Lane. I've done my bit. I've ticked all those boxes and played the politics and all that kind of stuff. And now I'm 59. I'm tired. I want to get it done, and don't have an awful lot of time for bullshit, if I'm being honest. So can we just cut through it and let's make it happen? And to be fair, I got a pretty good relationship with the mayor. He's a good guy. Jack Yow's the councillor, good guy. There's a lot of good people there. There's a lot of people who are willing to get it done. You just got to cut a bit of a swathe through some of the the bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's what I like, Parky, about Paul being the managing director. Is cold as ice when it comes to getting the job done. And that's what it's all about, isn't it, Parky? That's what you want in your leader.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this last week with Trev when we had Trevor on. That it basically you get what you see, and I think that's the right way. You can't, certainly in this kind of thing, when you're dealing with local authorities and politicians in general. There's a lot of spin, a lot of nonsense, and you need somebody who's just going to cut through it and get to the bottom. You can shake hands with people, you can smile at people and make promises, and you know that none of it generally happens. But we've got what we've got in Paul is somebody who's just gone straight to it and just called it out as it is, and that's sort of woken people up and made the public, never mind just the council, sort of sit up and go, yeah, actually, I think we do need to do something about this, because, like Paul's just said there, it's been going on for 3 years. Knowing what local councils are like, I had a period of working with Salford Council and in Salford Council, and nothing moves very quickly. And this could have gone on for another 3 years, or another 6 years, or 8 years. That's the way they work. And what's happened here is now he's got to the point, and people have woken up and said, yeah, we do need to get this sorted.
Look, I don't. It is a complex issue. It's a very complex issue. There are some complex parties involved in it, to say the least. And it's a complex issue. So I get it. And we're talking about a time when there's £20 million cuts in child services and all that kind of stuff. I get it. Get all that. And who cares about a little old rugby league club at that point? Well, I do. And I'm driven to ensure this is a self-sustaining rugby league club, and to do that, there's certain things we've got to achieve. So you have to start talking the lingo. You have to start talking about what we deliver to the community of Salford, via the club and via the foundation, via our activations, via our engagements, be it community schools. And we'll talk about it in answer to some of your questions further down the line, I think. But, some of the things we've got planned and we're doing in the community are staggering. We just don't talk about it enough. But we'll talk about it. We're going to get louder. We will get louder. We'll get annoyingly louder, I'm sure. But there's things that we're going to do that I'm pretty sure will excite you guys. The Valentine's Cup's coming back. We found it. That kind of thing. We're going to have schools competitions, community club comps, because there is a direct correlation between participation and attendances. That's why we're playing in front of 3,500, 4,000 people, because nobody plays the bloody game in Salford, or very few people play the game in Salford anymore. When I was a kid growing up, there was Staff Alive, Pendlebury, Cromwell. There was loads of teams. What is it, like 5 now? And even with the 5, we saw West Orton's one of them. It's not Salford, not really. But they're under our umbrella now. So we've got to do that again. But to do that, we've got to start under 11 level and start getting participation at that level. So, I'm getting ahead of myself. Got a rugby league strategy coming. And it's exciting. But I'll talk about it a little bit later. But yeah, in terms of your question, Rob, from 10 minutes ago, there's periods of self-doubt, but I'm kind of driven by it. I know some people think I'm arrogant. I don't think I am. I just am what I am. I don't want to waste time. I'm 59, and you just cut a swathe through the bullshit, without wishing to seem insulting to anybody. And there was a point. I mean, I've had a meeting with the mayor and his group this morning, and there was a point where you just sit in a room and you think, I can't do this anymore. So this is the situation. Either we get support on this and we get that, and this happens, or the club will fold. And I said 2.5 years ago, if you're not careful, you're going to pontificate us into liquidation. And we got close. I think we're kind of out of the woods a little bit in that respect now. I'm being careful because we've got a couple of dots and a couple of T's. But when you're dealing with that, I just think there's a point where you just got. It's an honest chat. You just want to say, listen, if this doesn't happen, we're gone. And I don't want to spend the next 2 years of my life flogging a dead horse. I love the clubs a bit. I've been around it since I was 7-year-old, but it's different now. I'm around the back, aren't I? I can see the strings and all that kind of stuff. I know the puppet show works. It is different now. So I'm kind of, and I don't want to flog a dead horse. So the reason for that approach and that attitude and that fait accompli stance is that, because I can't play politics if we're on a knife edge.
Yeah. And obviously, the short-term, medium-term and long-term benefits when this does eventually get over the line. But like you say, because you're that close, you can't really dream about them long-term ones. It's about getting to that short-term benefit straight away.
I mean, short-term, we got, listen, on Sunday, we've got a fan zone, it's ours. So we've got that concession straight away, the fan zone hours. You'll see a fun bus. We're going to have interviews, legends interviews on from the top deck of an open deck bus. The bottom of it sells beer. I think Wagger's hosting the fan zone on week 1 against Cass, so that'll be interesting. Avoid that like the plague for me, dear me. We've got the Zorbs there. We've got the obstacle course there. We've got all kinds. There's a women's game kicking off at noon. It's going to be a great day. So we got, but that's ours. The beer is ours. The profit from that is ours from external right from day one. Moving forward, there's the F&B inside hospitality, etc. Because we're getting nothing from that at the minute. So all of a sudden, you've got these little bits of income that are suddenly coming our way. And I say little bits of income, but those little bits of income could be 100 grand over the course of a year. You know, and that makes a difference. It closes a gap. There's always this gap between us and sustainability. So I mean that's really the short-term thing, is to get access to the fan zone, which we've got, F&B, and then other commercial opportunities. For instance, one of the things we can do quite quickly, we can put a big screen in the corner. So I think at some point, early part of the season, I think we're probably targeting week 5, but if we can get it, it might not be quite that quick. We want a big screen in the corner, permanent. Then we want to wrap the LEDs around the back of the posts. The reason we want a big screen, the LEDs around the back of the posts, obviously it gives us a great commercial opportunity, but it also gives us another 0.5 points on the IMG grading criteria, which means we're only 0.7 off a grade A. You know, so and guess what? One of the big scores that we can work on with the IMG grading criteria is non-centralized funding. So you get distributions, which is centralized funding, and then a percentage of your money is non-centralized funding. You get points for that. That's commercials. That's money for your LEDs. That's so it's like it's a double whammy bonus. If we get that done, we're flying. And I think I would hate to say we're dead set for a grade A, but if we get it right, we'll get a grade A. And then they can't touch us, can they? Doesn't matter how many bad penalties you give away, how many awful referee decisions you're not doing yet.
And I suppose that's the important thing, like you say, sort of building something to be proud of. I know we've been on this journey to get to where we are now, but like you said, now we get access to other revenue streams. You can grow the club, and that's the important aspect, isn't it? It's about growing Salford Red Devils into a club that you can all dream of, really.
We'll go there now then. So I don't think people realise it. I'm pretty sure it's in the brochure with the CBS. So I don't want people to understand that. I keep coming across it. There is a difference between the club and the CBS. The CBS own the club, but I'm the sole director of the club. It's 2 different entities. So the CBS is there to help raise funds for the club. The club has a funding gap of it costs us. These are real numbers: £4 million to run the club per annum, and we've got income of 3.2. So we've got an 800 grand gap. So do the math in terms of the crowdfunder, which was 280 grand after stoppages. Then you can look at the sales of players, which we've always done, by the way. I remember Paul Groves going out of the way, Colin Whitfield, David Stevenson. We've always done it. But we had an 800 grand gap. So we did what we had to do to survive 2023. And as of the 1st of December, it's the new year. So guess what? We start all over again. We've got another 800 grand gap. So all we're trying to do, and all we've been trying to do for 3 years, by the way, try to stretch this. Lots of daft things, the house, all that kind of stuff. All that's true. Is to stretch us to this point, which should have been 12 months ago. But wasn't. But again, we've mentioned this. This is about getting stuck in the bureaucracy of it all. So we wanted this done 12 months ago. Didn't get there, but we're getting there now. So it's another 800 grand gap. But you get your commercials in. You get your. There's a commercial deal that's sat waiting. As soon as this deal's done, which will blow your socks away. It's great for the club. So we can close that gap. We can close that gap real quick. We think it takes time for the money to filter through. I'm saying real quick. I'm talking 6 months. It takes time for money to filter through. It's a cash flow thing. Does it mean that we're going to go out and start go and bring Tyler Dupree back in March? No, but it does mean that we'll be in a better position, and we'll actually have the plan is ultimately that we'll have assets that don't run around in a red shirt. Because at the moment we get in trouble, our only asset runs around in a red shirt, and we are, by the way, we're the only rugby league club probably in the world who can command transfer fees. We've got into people's psyche; they believe they have to do it with us. Nobody else gets a fee. We do. So, I mean, fair play. We've achieved that. We don't pay anything for anybody, but we get paid when we're releasing people. And it's, you know, I wouldn't buy into the John Wilkin bit, by the way. That's not true either, but is what it is. Laddie Bants, I suppose.
Thoughts, Parky?
Yeah, I mean, I think that'll shock people that the 800 grand deficit thing. I honestly don't think from talking to people week in, week out, they realise the expense of what it costs to run a professional rugby league club and to keep us in the Super League. I'm sure, a couple of years ago we could have stepped down.
It's not just that though, Park, is it? It's not just about keeping us in Super League, mate. If you think about it, and this is what we've had to do, we're a community club. We have to lock into the community. We have to represent the community. So now we are Super League, reserve grade, women's team, elite academy, development academy, wheelchair, PDL, LDL. Every one of them needs a coach to travel to away games. Every one of them, you have to buy food for the players, away players, and match officials. The cost, every one of them has bandages, first aid kit. Everyone of them has to have physio. Everyone has to have a doctor that you pay for on match days. The cost escalates by virtue of the amount of teams that you've got.
Yeah.
Nobody does it for free. But we had to do that, mate. We had to represent the full community. If you're going to get the local authority on board and go, this is it, got to have more. By the way, party minimum standards is you have to have a reserve grade and you have to have a women's team.
Yeah.
So if you want the IMG criteria, you've got to do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the thing I was going to say, that, a couple of years back, we had one team. We had a first year. This was with going back to a so-called millionaire owner who scrapped the academy and whatever else and just focused on the first team. And people seem to overlook that and think that was, it was a great time. I mean, it was absolutely, some of the decisions that were made then we're still obviously suffering with. But that whole, that whole deficit, and people then say, well, all you do is sell your players. That's all you do. And you've just explained it there. That's all we've got at the moment. That is what we can't trade in anything else. We can't, we're not going to sell off bits of land. We can't, there's no other way of doing it. Land. So exactly. So we've got, we've got the players we've got. And if that's what it takes to stay alive, to keep the club afloat, then that's what's going to happen. And I know me and Rob have said it in the past, and Paul when he's on, that, we just want a club. We want a club to watch. This could have all gone, belly up a couple of years back. We all know that very easily.
Yeah, could have. Yeah.
I'm fortunate we've had people like yourself behind the scenes who've worked tirelessly to keep us, not just the club, not just a championship or a League One club. We could be Swinton, Oldham, any of them right now. I mean, you've seen what happened to Widnes and Bradford, Halifax, all these teams. We're a Super League club, and we have got these amazing. I mean, the women's team, you'll have heard us talk about all the time. We were blown away by it straight away. It was just so much work went into it. And it was so so good that first couple of years. I think we've been treated like muck last year, but that's different. But all these arms now are coming out of this club from the hard work that's gone on there. When realistically, these people need to set their head out the backside and realise that we might have had nothing if we hadn't made these sacrifices and these players being moved on, if you like.
I think sometimes it's the burden of leadership that you do things and you can't be quite as public with it, and people will comment and have their opinions. And it's right that they do. That's part of being the club that we are. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. Everybody's entitled to. You're entitled to your own opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts, as I keep saying. And some of the opinions have been hysterical, quite frankly. But I get it. It is what it is. We couldn't keep Jackson Hastings. Couldn't compete for him. Shame. But you move on. You move on. And the idea is that we get ourselves in a position where we can keep Nenny McDonald. We can keep Tim Lafayette. Do you know what I mean? We can keep David, no volume. Yeah, gonna have to invent a. Who's going to be the first to invent a song about that one? No volume. Can't find anything that rhymes with it. But it's always been the plan to become this self-sustaining club, and it's just a matter of how you get there. And yeah, there's been U-turns, there's been diversions because we've had to adapt. But realistically, as I said earlier, we're driven by it. We've got to get to a certain point, and we're nearly there. And some of the income streams will be pretty good. But it also touches into the crowdfunder and why we did the crowdfunder, what the crowdfunder can now offer us. We'll get a 15-year tenure. We'll get at least for 15 years. And that opens up a world of other possibilities for us.
Is the 15-year lease the important aspect of it for you?
Because with a 15, the match funding pot are one of them. There's several, isn't there? So there's a levelling up fund one, there's a DCMS one. The match funding pot that I keep harping on about, you have to have a 15-year lease to get it. And that can be £1 to £2 million. And it's got to be the set criteria. You can't just go and get £2 million and want it. You've got to attach it to something that helps sustain the club, etc., etc. There are set criteria to it, some of which we probably still don't understand, but we do meet with them and have these conversations because we're prepping for it. The local authority are on board with it. Make no bones about it. We want to get £2 million and buy a share of the stadium. Because if we buy a share of the stadium, if we can get there, we've got an asset. And if we've got an asset, you don't need to sell players anymore. You can borrow against your asset. And by the way, at the moment, I've spoken probably in the last 5 years, I must have spoken to about 30 people who are going to buy the club. And as soon as they find out we've not got part of the stadium or we don't own the stadium, they disappear quicker than they've turned up. So they all blow smoke around and do nothing. Wonder if we own part of the stadium, how much of a fishing trip we'll have then, whether people will suddenly put their hand up. And that's got to be the aim, I think, hasn't it? Unless the public of Salford decide they quite like this model and they want to stay that way. Because without a benefactor, we've got to a grand final, a cup final, and a semi-final in the last 5 years. It's not bad for us. But I've also had 4 o'clock in the morning waking up anxiety attacks. We'll make payroll this month for about 2 years. And if you've got an Eamon McManus or a Ken Davey, you don't have that. He just puts his hand in his pocket. So it's a conversation further down the line. What I'm trying to do is give us options.
Yeah. And I think obviously when you talk about the community structure that you put in place, you're kind of relying on funding in certain sort of different revenue streams and counter government stuff that you could apply for. I think we talked about the levelling up fund, didn't we, last year? Not sure how that sort of played out. But is there things that sort of you can continue to apply for year in, year out, or is it just once done and then we've got to find £2 million or whatever in a different way?
The one that I keep harping on about is a one-off, and that is, for me, we've looked at lots of different areas. Could we put another 3G pitch down and charge for its use and generate income from that? Could we build a museum? Could we build this? Could we build that? And the one that's got the most traction in conversation with the DCMS was about buying a share of the stadium. So that's and it makes sense. It's an asset.
Yeah,
it's part of an asset that we're pushing on door with the council. I think they quite like us to be involved at that level. We'd quite like to be at the stage where we have a councillor sat on our board. If I'm being honest, we need to be real cozy. We're going to need each other over the course of the next few years, I think, and need to have that open gangway between the two. The relationship's really good. It's the best that I've known it. I've only known it for 5 years. When I first walked through the door, it was pretty ordinary, to say the least. It was awful. Not as bad as the relationship with HMRC, but nearly. And they're both better than they were, just in the case of HMRC, but it is what it is. But yeah, I think relationship with the council is pretty good, and I think it is an open door, and I think that's got to be one of our priorities, is to get there and own an asset. It's not it's the same as any other walk of life. You get on the housing market, you get on it, don't you? If you can get 2 houses so you can rent 1 out, you do it. If you can get 3 houses so you can rent 2 out, you do it. It's just business. So just own something. For Christ's sake, own something so that when it hits the fan, you're not looking at who's your most saleable asset running around on a field in a red shirt, and just move away from that thing that we've done for, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, it's just sensible. It's just sensible business. Really. Knowing, obviously, if you can get an asset.
It's getting the opportunity to get the asset, yeah?
Yeah.
So we never have any money. First day I walked through the door of the club doing this, the first thing I did was I get a letter from HMRC saying that we're being fined £500 a day for late payments. £500 a day. What? We had about 200 quid in the bank as a club. And it's kind of, wow, what have I done? Why am I here? And you just, from that position where you kind of bottomed out, you start to think, you start to build, and you've got to start planning. I can't remember the name of the film. It's a film with Matt Damon about being left behind on Mars. Can't remember what it's called. Called The Martian. Correct.
Martian. Yeah.
Thanks to Jane, my wife, who's just shouted that from the living room. That's lovely. So it's called The Martian. It's probably a bang average film, but there's one bit in it right in the end that's an absolute truism, and I love it. And he sat there and he says, you get a problem, you do the maths, you solve the problem, you move on to the next problem. You do the maths, you solve the problem. And if you solve enough problems, all of a sudden, you get back to earth. For us, solving enough problems is self-sustaining. And we just keep solving, do the maths, solve the problem, do the maths, solve the problem. There's times when I've sat here, making a cup of tea at 3 o'clock in the morning, pitch black, thinking, oh, shit. How can I start? And you do take outrageous risks. I have done the house thing. I've done it. And would I do it again? Yeah, if I can find an out. I'm not a gambling man. I don't do that thinking that I'm actually going to lose the house. I do it as a short-term fix to find a solution. That's all. It buys me time. That's all it is. If it was you're going to do it and you're going to lose your house next week, if you do it, I'm not doing it. Much as I love the club, I'm brave, but I'm not stupid. Well, I'm not stupid. But so it's about finding solutions and getting to the next point, finding the next problem. And again, we've fixed a lot of problems. And sometimes we've fixed one and created something in doing it. And that happens. So then you've got to adapt and you've got to move again. But keep going, keep flowing, keep fixing problems. And eventually, I've said it before, I said it about 2 years ago, so you guys probably won't believe me. We're so close you can smell it. You can almost touch it. We're so close to that golden BB moment. We really are. And at that point, people will forget. We do need a prop forward. And we're desperately trying to do that. So people won't forget that we need a prop forward until we get one. But you know what I mean? There are other things. The prop forward is a really important thing to make sure that we've got 4,000 or 5,000 people turning up on a Sunday. In the general scheme of things over the next 5 years that are planned, not so much. Not so much. And it sounds wrong. No. And Park in particular won't like it. This year, IMG criteria is more important. It's more important we get that 1.2 that we need to get the right score so that we've got a Kai. I know that you won't like it, Parky. I don't. If I'm a bit old school. But them's the rules, mate. I didn't make them.
I know. I get it.
We've got to get them. We've got to get ourselves over the line. The way that's the most important thing this season. Really. Yeah.
No, it is, but it doesn't. But it is. But again, I'm ambitious. I'm not a great believer that we should be looking to finish 10th. Not for me. No. It's counterproductive, mate. We will try and get the best prop forward we can get within the budget that we've got. We could have gone overseas with a prop. We had a couple lined up, but North Luma became available, and the way that we play, we needed Kenny Seal Mark II, and we got him. Losing Kenny was a hammer blow. Didn't see it coming. But there's reasons for that. There's reasons for that. Is of domestic nature, the Kenny's reasons with his dad and all that kind of stuff. So completely understandable. But yeah, blow for us because he's an absolute legend of the game and he's a legend of the club. So replacing Kenny's hard. But this guy's more than capable of doing.
Talking about obviously steps to get to the stadium asset thing, would you consider, obviously the council talks about land around the stadium, would you consider as a club purchasing a piece of land to build on for, I don't know, training ground, shop, etc.? or retail or whatever?
Yeah, we'd need to win the lottery though, mate. They've got it listed as industrial land. So if you look at I think it's the plot at the side of the training pitch at the minute. I think that's that we use as the overflow car park. I think that's 7 million, which we ain't got that. We've got nothing. No. So the answer to the question is, I'd love to, but I think I need 6 numbers to come up to pull that one off. I think Parky, and it needs to be on a Friday night on a rollover European one. I think so. I think in things like a club shop, I think there's things in the pipeline. I'm scratching my head now. I think whether we've pushed anything out about it yet, but there's things in the pipeline in terms of a club shop. Got to be careful what I say, but that's imminent. Yeah, that's imminent. So that's coming. Well, yeah, I won't say any more than that. But that's almost here. In terms of training facilities, again, there's something in the pipeline over the course of the next 12, 18 months that will address that better than it is at the moment. But it's not our commercial deal, so I can't give that away. But that'll probably come in the public realm inside the next 6 to 12 months, I would have thought. But it's our intro. We did a bit behind the scenes for it, but that's quite exciting if it comes off. So there's a lot going on. We'd like another training pitch so we can alternate, to be fair. And that may happen. But
all sounds very exciting, Parker. Don't want to draw any more information out of Paul King that he don't want to give us, but it all sounds very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, look, from where we've been, everything sounds exciting. Let's be honest. Just, the stability that we're being given here is the main thing for me. But I mean, things like training grounds or just pitches. I mean, we saw what happened with Kenny Sale. Was it last year when he fell down a hole or something or whatever? I don't know what happened. The stories come out. But like you say, to have somewhere, it's just that professionalism as well. That if you're a player going to a club and you've got negotiations with a couple of clubs and you turn up and you go, is this? Oh, we can't train there because we're not allowed because that's something else. It's having this agreement with the stadium is massive for that. But actually getting your own training ground or separate pitch or whatever, I mean, that's massive, and it's just standards. It's just raising the whole thing of the club that we've not had for in my lifetime. I don't think, to be honest with you, but
I think there's more than one way it's going to cap, and I think we've got to be a bit smarter too. So we've got on that grass pitch outside the stadium, we've got the women and the reserves train on it like a Tuesday and Thursday night. First grade train on it 4 times a week. Then women and reserve grade will play on it once the season starts on a weekend. So it's getting battered. Gets battered.
Yeah.
I think Swinton train on it a couple of times a night as well. So we have got other options that we need to look at. We need to be smarter, and we need to say, it's absolutely pouring down. We're going to train here today, or we're going to, book. And what we've done previously, let's book something at Platt Lane with MMU and train on their pitch for a couple of days and give ours a bit of a rest. Well, how much does that cost? Oh, it's 500 quid. Can we afford it? And we're an elite level rugby league club. We need to behave like it. And part of that's me because I'm tight, and because I'm very conscious that if we owe the money to HMRC, we need to pay them, and we can't mess. They're the only people that can shut us down. So we just need to play ball with them and not be silly, and football, quite rightly, football department's driven by it. They will spend every penny you've got without a second thought, really. But that's the nature of them. They want to win. They're competitive by nature. So I'm about finding a balance, but we have got to be smarter. We've got to be smart what we do. And you're right, if we can find alternate training facilities, and there is a couple of conversations going on, I'd move away from the stadium as a training facility tomorrow if we can find the right alternative. And I don't mean that to belittle them. I mean that we probably need a better facility for an elite level sports club with multiple teams training on.
So obviously you talked about the football department and obviously the demands that they sort of want from you. Obviously Paul Rowley, an excellent coach. Is he kind of the ideal man in our situation to get the most out of what he's got? You think?
Yeah, he's a good leader, and he's. I mentioned it before about being honest. He's a great believer in that. He's an honest chat guy. Sometimes from personal experience, brutally honest. To be fair, but he is what he is. But we have a pretty good relationship. Love him to bits most days. But he's a very honest guy. I think he's very honest with the group, and I think players really respect that. There's some. I'll tell you one from not last year, the year before. To just give you an example of that, so it's not offending anybody that's in the current playing group, I don't think. But he was in pre-season, and I was sat there watching the team review thing, and Gaz Witt, the S&C, runs through the structure for the day, and Rolls then stands up. He says, "Okay, lads, just so you know, when you come back in from the field, from your sessions, the squad numbers will be on the wall, and people will tell you that squad numbers don't mean anything. So let me just correct that. Yes, they do. And if you don't like it, my office is there. We can have a chat." And that was just it. And the players just started giggling because that's just him. He doesn't shy away from anything. Confront it and just be honest. And if you don't like it, I get why you don't like it, but this is what you need to do to get a decent shirt number. And that's just him. So yeah, he is exactly the right guy, I think. And I think it's the pairing. To be fair, I think we've got a really good setup now. So Haggy is a master tactician. Love Haggy to bits. Great guy. Can come across as quite dour, but I think that's just the beard. To be fair, but he's a great guy. Love him to bits. He's also got an awful lot of respect in the room. And then you got Krishnan, who's the third wheel, who is globally respected. I think his connections down under have helped us tremendously. Certainly with David. I think getting David in is a direct result of Chrissy. So he's very, very clued in globally on the game, knows everybody, and it's just a respect thing. He's very, very well respected down under his Chrissy. He's a good human being as well, while you're at it.
Obviously, when it comes to sort of players and him coming to you, do you keep sort of him in the loop when it comes to what's happening behind the scenes, or do you just tell him what he needs to know?
In terms of which bits?
Well,
in terms of players,
yeah.
In terms of players, my involvement on players is that's your budget. And then I'm gone. I've said it before. I had one comment on a player which was about 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, when I said, "Gil Dudson, what do you want to sign in for?" And then he played a significant part in getting us into a grand final. It was immense in that semi-final at Wigan. So I know nothing. And I learned a valuable lesson in keeping my gob shut at that point. I still, to be fair, I quite like sitting in the room when they're all at it and just chatting from the fans. I think they kind of giggle at me under the breath a little bit. From a fan's eye view, I like to talk about the relative merits of this. Look, I keep saying it's a privilege. It's terrible at 4 o'clock in the morning when you get an anxiety attack and you don't know whether you can make payroll. Don't get me wrong, that's awful. Flip side of that, I've sat in rooms with people when they're talking about inside shoulder and hip positions and stuff that for 30 odd years of my rugby watching career, I didn't even know existed. And now I'm so much more educated on the sport in the last 4 or 5 years than I've ever been. It's probably not as much fun now because I know too much, but it's fantastic to sit and listen to them discuss the relative merits of players, and players that I think are absolutely fantastic. They just go, shit. just because we look at the wrong things. I look at the wrong things. We all do. I'm a fan. First and foremost, I'm a fan. Oh, he's quick and elusive, isn't he? Yeah, he is, but he runs out of gas after 3 minutes and he can't take a tackle. Okay, thanks for that. I've just shattered everything that I thought about that player, but thanks.
Sounds like Paul King's living our dream, mate. Sat in these meetings, Parker.
On days it's great. On days it's great. You should come in and do it, guys. You should come in and do it. Just everybody should do it once.
I think it's one of those things when you sit in the stand and you watch play, you go, what have we got him for? He's useless. He's this. And the one I always go back to was Carl Harrison, who he taught me a lot just by listening to him in meetings and that kind of thing. Like you say, that there was things in the game that I didn't even, and I played for a decent amount of time that I'd never even heard of, never mind thought about. And some of the players that he used to go on about, the likes of Andrew Brocklehurst and Ryan Clayton and people like that. And you're like, what? No. And without them, we wouldn't have had that modicum of success that we had around that period. They were the players that made that. And now that's what I look at players now. And yeah, it's easy to watch a Jackson Hastings and a Brodie Croft and whoever else do their glamour stuff. But there's players on every team that you don't even think about. You wouldn't even, people, they just pass you by. I mean, for me at the moment, obviously, Callum Watkins is a player I absolutely adore. But someone like Sam Stone or a Shane Wright, who's a magnificent player, they get through so much of the boring stuff. They're not eye-catching at times. They don't, and it's them players that make a team. And I was going to go back to Paul Rowley. I said last week on the podcast, and just going off what Rob said about it, is he the ideal man? We will go on about prop forwards, and we will go on about wingers and whatever else. But for me, he is our extra player, Paul Rowley. He's our ace in the pack, because he makes, from what I see from the outside, and I like say I'm not privileged to be in these meetings and everything. I think he makes players think they can do things that they don't think they can do, and get stuff out of them that they can't do. And that takes a lot, because I've seen coaches. I remember Gary Jack being at the club for a while, and he treated every player like they should have been the best player in the world, because he didn't actually understand that players do have
Len Hoddle syndrome.
Yeah, and they were part-time players. They didn't have this, they weren't that special player, but they had something to offer. But he didn't know how to get that from players. And I see in Paul Rowley exactly that. And you mentioned Kurt, and I've heard from people who've been at the club, and the respect that he's got. He's a head coach in waiting. Again, I know he had that shot at Lee, and he did a great job. He turned us over, didn't he? I think. But then
when remind him of that.
Yeah. But and he's another one that's just like you say, he'll know so much about the game, and he's another one of those characters, like I say about the players, that people won't think about. It's all Paul Rowley. But I'm sure Paul will tell you himself, although maybe not, that without Kurt, he wouldn't have half the joy that he gets.
Rolls is just a very honest chap, so I think he would. Rolls knows it's about the group, and I think the players love him because he's honest, and a bit. He will turn around and say, "You should be a world-class superstar, but you're not, and this is why you're not." And he don't mind saying it's because your attitude's wrong or this or that. He'll do it. He has no issue with that whatsoever, because he's trying to make them better, and they know it. So he'll tell them what they need to work on to make themselves better, be that physically, be that technically, be that attitudinally. He won't shy away from that conversation. And behind him, he's got Kurt, who's an excellent tactician. Kristen's incredibly nuanced and intelligent when it comes to the global game. So it's a good unit, and you talk about, you're right, you talk about Jacko in 2019. We got to a grand final on the back of Gil Dudson, Lee Mossop, Tyke McCarthy and Flash Flanagan, who were unsung. I mean, they're all big names, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
They weren't glamour, were they? They weren't glamour, but without them four, we don't get anywhere near it. And that is a truism. You need, and now to bring it back to the modern times, the way that we play. And I'll tell you, I sat there in a couple of meetings going, but we need a prop, don't we? We need a prop. The priority's prop, so we'll go overseas on prop. We nearly got Peter Holler, the prop. We thought we had him done, and then he decided to stay at home. He decided we were going to come to the UK, and I just assumed we'd go and get another prop, and then it's kind of like, oh, we've got Noah Faluma. Can we go get Noah Faluma? Can we free up the money to get him? He's a winger. We need a prop. But because of the way that, I don't think people understand it, because of the way we play, we transition really quick. We play the ball really quick. Unless you're playing against Leeds on the opening day, you get a lot of 6 agains on the back of it. Not that I'm moaning, obviously, otherwise I get fined again. But what you do, there is a style of play. So when people say, "Oh, you're not got props, you need a big bopper," do we? We'd like someone who can break the line for fun. Of course, would everybody would, but they're few and far between. But in someone like Shane Wright, you got someone who's got quick feet at the line, good hands. 29 out of 29 tackles, didn't miss a beat against Leeds. That is incredible, mate. And people forget, Wrighty was our best player last season until he got injured. He was outstanding, and he will be again this season, mate. Yeah. But you need those kind of players in the mix, and we do need a prop. There's no denying it. We do. We want one. We're light. We've always known it. But don't forget, we've been in special measures. We're still in special measures. We have to be very careful. We can sign whoever we want. I can go and I can nip to the World Club Championship and sign that scrum half, Cleary fella. Don't know if you've heard of him. I can say, but I'll never be able to play him because they won't let me register him. So we've got to be careful about how we do it. We've had to go to bring others in, etc., etc. It's all about balancing the books, and quite rightly, by the way, I know we'll get a copper bit for that. Quite rightly, they'll sit there and go, until you've got that stadium deal done, where's your income's coming from? And it's right. They are right. We've got to be careful about it, but we are on the hunt for a prop. So I'm saying no more on that, but we're on it. We're on it. We know.
Just obviously moving back just to the stadium again. What's our relationship like with Sale? Obviously, both tenants, both obviously want the stadium to be a success. Have we going to collaborate with them over certain aspects of the game day experience for them and for us, or are we?
We met with Paul Smith and Simon Orange a couple of times now. There's a real area of collaboration with it. We've got to wait until the stadium deal's done for fairly obvious reasons. But there's a real sense of collab between, and it should be a tripartite thing between ourselves, Sale, and the council. That's the way. If the stadium's going to work, that's the way it will work. And just simple stuff, if we're having a big screen fitted, let Sale use it too. Obviously, of course you will. And if we're going to have a fan zone, have a joint fan zone. Have something that can just stay. Don't have one that's a Salford fan zone, then pull it down, then put the Sale one up, and then when you're overlapping, you're in and out all. Just work in collaboration with each other to make things work. You can do a deeper dive into that. There's all kinds of conversations you can have about, payroll departments and all that kind of thing if you really want to go that way. We're not there yet. We're not. Baby steps, but we wouldn't shy away from that conversation either.
I suppose, obviously, at Sale are at a top sort of rugby union club. We learn off them, they'll learn off us, and obviously become stronger as units, don't we?
We're a top rugby league club as well, Rob.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, we learn from each other, don't we?
Well, yeah, and there's things that they can learn from our game and things we can learn from their game. Commercially, I don't think it's an understatement to suggest that rugby union is miles ahead of us, not just us as a club, but us as a sport. And there's lots of reasons for that. But there's certain things that we can learn from some of their behaviours and the way that they do things. And I'm pretty sure there's things that they can learn from us. In fact, I know there's things that they can learn from us. And there is a sense of collaboration. And don't forget, a lot of the sales staff are rugby league people. There are people with rugby league in the background that work for Sale and in rugby union indeed. So there always has been communication channels between the two clubs. It's just that it's probably a deeper and higher level now than it has been previously.
Prediction time, 5 years' time, where do you see us as a club?
I think we will be, as a club, we will be employing development officers doing free delivery to schools across the city of Salford from primary level upwards. I think the Valentine's Cup will be running either with schools or community clubs. There'll be two competitions. One of them will be called the Valentine's Club Cup. The other one will have a different name. Who knows? I think we will be self-sustaining. I think we'll have income streams. I think we will be the beating heart in the community of Salford. I think we have to be at that point. I think we need to make sure this is a rugby league city and recognised as such. I'd like there to be a sign saying to welcome to Salford, home of the Red Devils, in and around the place. I think that's a must, if I'm being honest. If you're going to take the sport seriously as a city, I think that we need to do that. As I say, self-sustaining, and I think competing. I think we need to. You can't make a commitment about winning things, but we need to compete for trophies. I think what we've done really badly, personally, in the last 3-4 years, is manage expectations. It's a different thing. Nobody expected that we would have to. It's us, for Christ's sake. I've seen it. I saw us play Maidstone away. Southend Invicta. It's why would we need to manage expectations? Well, that kind of crept up on us, didn't it? Who knew? And then managing people's expectations of us, who now suddenly think on 3,500 crowds, we can compete with people on 15 and 16,000 crowds. On Leeds front of shirt deal is £250,000, and it's a 20-year relationship. 20-year relationship. You know, we haven't got all our accumulated relationships out done last 20 years. So they commercially, and they're people, Leeds, I keep getting challenged on it, but Leeds are a club that we benchmark against. Because they play with a pretty scene. They're a city. They play a growing city at that. They play with a Premier League football club, not quite, but I'm sure they will be again soon-ish. And they compete with them, but they play in front of 15,000 people. Their commercial deals are about 5 to 6 times larger than ours. It's immense. And I know they've got the whole football club Leeds with the rugby union, the cricket side, and all that kind of stuff. But they're the people we need to benchmark against. They're the people that we need to say that's where, because if you're going to compete properly, you need to compete off the field with them as well as on the field. So we'll always, our history is littered with the occasional bloody nose for Wigan or Saints, isn't it? But have we done it consistently? And in 5 years, I'd like to think we're in a position where we can compete consistently for trophies. I'm not saying we're going to win one. We'd like to. But I want to compete consistently and have assets that mean that we're not a position where we're a selling club. That's got to be the ambition, not to sell, because that's what puts a pin in it for 40 years. And we've experienced it now. That's what puts a pin in it. It's for 40 years we've sold people have lost faith, and then you've got to rebuild the faith again. And we will. People, it's difficult. I'm hoping that by virtue of this podcast, people will understand some of the logic behind what we've done and why we've done it. And the fact that we're still here should be celebrated. But we've got to make that. It can't be another 5 years of what we've just been doing. Can't be. I won't. That's not why I'm here. It's not. I liked walking out of Wembley. I'd like to do it again. Just walking out at Castleford doesn't have the same effect. And quite frankly, for us, it's got to be about competing. It's got to be about competing in Super League. Because the difference between Super League and the Championship is about £1.25 million a year. So the drop off is absolute. We'd be part-time straight away. We couldn't do what we did in the John Wilkinson days where he put his hand in his pocket and underpinned us. We ain't got anybody to do it. So we have to compete at Super League. So it has to be about Super League. And much as it may irk the purists amongst us, we have to get that Cat A IMG, because them's the rules now. We got to manipulate that to the best of our ability, get that Cat A, remove that threat, and take advantage of the other things that are going wrong with the stadium, and we've cracked it. We'll fly. And look, do I think we'll win things with the setup we've got now? Yes, we will. I really do believe that, but we've got to be in a position where we can enable ourselves to compete.
It's all very exciting, Parky. Obviously, big ambitions, but realistic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back to the sort of the expectation side of things, I've had this debate with my own brother. Oddly enough, he was very disgruntled with the players going out and that kind of thing. And
that was my brother, by the way.
He said, "Well, yeah." He said, "We've been built up. We've had this few years of success." And I said, "But you think back to the last time we won anything major was '77. We're going back nearly 50 years. In that time, these successful years, they're the oddities. They're the ones that that's when we've been. That's a shock for us to make a final, to be in a semi-final. Before this recent spell, if we had a couple of 3 Challenge Cup semi-finals before the cup final we actually made, nowhere in the league, very rarely even touched the playoffs, even when it was a top 8 in when it was old part-time first division. People have been built up because of what happened in 2019 and 2020 and everything under Rolls. And I think the expectation needs to come back to, this is who we are at the moment, and this is who we've been for a long time. It's all right harking back to the 70s and thinking, well, it was great. Yeah, it was. But that's not the way it's been consistently throughout history. We need to get our head around that. And I said it last week, and it's took me a little bit of time, that this year, for me, is that year where we plateau, only because, and this isn't something that, I mean, having watched on Friday night, I don't believe will happen. And I certainly don't think Paul Rowley will let it happen. But it's a case of we get our house in order. We don't have false hope going forward. This is the watershed. When this stadium deal is hopefully done, and the revenue streams are there, and the ones that you've already said they're ready to go. There's commercial opportunities. Once that's in place, we can then move on. I see what happened at Hull KR after we relegated them in that £1 million game. They reassessed what their club was about and where they were. They cleared the decks. Then they've gone ahead. The stadium, for what it is, it's better than it was. They're doing a lot with the fan zones. They restructured. They've got money in. They've got a decent team there now. It gave them that platform to do that, and I think that's where we're at. And I think this is the chance, and people need to. I think just sort of get your head around that. Those recent years, they've been a blip, a good blip, but they're the blip. But that's where we need to get to, and to make sure it's not built on sand. This is something now that we're putting down, and the future. I know we say it every year, but it does look bright. It does. There is hope there. And the last 2 weeks have certainly cheered me up and changed my attitude to things. The off season seemed to drag, and I was a bit like, all we're getting is bad news. It's just bad news and bad. But we as fans, no idea what goes on, how tough it is, where we've been. I mean, the whole period from the end of the season to the start of this season, when there's no income coming in, really, there's no money, there's nothing. We thought it was dark days. I can't imagine you getting up out of bed in the morning, going into the stadium or wherever, into your office and sitting there and thinking, how are we carrying on?
No, well, I'll tell you what made it worse this year in particular. Well, back in the 23 season in particular, obviously it was dark because of Brody in particular, because we didn't want to do it, but we had to. But because of the stadium uncertainty, and we didn't know, our tenancy agreement was up in December, and we didn't know we was getting another tenancy agreement. So we'd put season tickets early bird on sale in about July, August. Couldn't do it. If you didn't, I don't know if you noticed, we didn't put season tickets on sale to about, was it late September, October? Mate, we were dying. We had absolutely no lifeblood. And we're saying, can we just get a temp agreement in a 12-month extension so we can actually get season tickets on sale? Mate, it took about 2-3 months to get that done. And people don't get that. They don't see it. There's no reason why they should. That's the stuff that happens behind the scenes at the puppet show, isn't it? But it's you got to factor it in, because it's absolute nightmare. When you've got that position, you can see it coming. You know what's happening. What commercial agreements are you doing? How much hospitality you're selling for the next season? When you don't even know what stadium you're playing at, you haven't got a clue. And it could go south on you. Could go south on you, and you end up playing at Gig Lane or. We did this thing where we went to the Etihad, and I've got to be honest, that was just. They haven't even got turnstiles there. There's no way we could have played there. They wouldn't fit the Super League criteria, but we had to be seen to do it.
Yeah, that was going to be my other point. That what were the options? I know Moore Lane was obviously there. That was discussed to the nth degree, I think. But what else was there? Because obviously Moore Lane was going to be a massive financial burden anyway. We that wasn't up to standard.
No, I think Moore Lane would take. I think
where we're going to go.
If I got the numbers right, I think Moore Lane was about 8 million to make it compliant. It needed wholesale work on the pitch, stands, everything. There's all kinds of weird, quirky things. It was have X amount of seats for journalists, X amount of seats for directors, home directors, away directors, and none of it was applicable at Moore Lane. It's a tidy stadium, by the way. I'm not knocking it. It's there's bits of it where I stood there at one point thinking, something, on a Friday night with the lights, this has got a bit of a Willows vibe to it, But the cost of it and the road network around it, mate, they get 1,800 people and it takes about 4 hours to disperse. Can you imagine us against Wigan, 7,000 people in there? They'd still be there at Christmas. You'd have people living there overnight. They'd have to take sleeping bags with them. So we got to the stage where I actually asked the council if we could knock down part of Curzon Vale and use it as a car park. And when they panicked about that request, and said, "Oh no, we can't do that. Well, we can't move there then because we've got nowhere to park anybody." At that point, it was kind of dead in the water. So yeah, at that point, we had a tentative reach out with Gig Lane, but we know what happened to Swinton when they went to Gig Lane. We went to the regional arena at the Etihad and had a look at that. But in truth, there was actually a point where you thought, if we can't make it work here, it isn't working. There's a point where anything else we do from here is a death spiral, a real slow, painful death, because you lose half your fan base anyway. And then you got to start regrowing again. And then you start having conversations about changing the name and blah, blah, blah. Not for me. I'd have been gone. Just someone else can pick that piece up. Not for me.
As you say, we're moving forward. We're nearly there with the stadium, which is exciting. If you could obviously send a message to the Soul fans listening to this today, what would it be?
Keep the faith. I know it's this. If you're as old as me or Parky, you've had your faith challenged numerous times a year for the last 30, 40 years, I guess. But it's in your blood. The future is bright. We keep saying it, but it really is. If we get this right, and I believe we will, I think the stadium deal will be done probably middle of March, back end at the very latest. And then watch things start to kick in. Don't expect us to go out and buy Nathan Cleary the week after. But you got to get a slow build of your cash, and you got to justify it as you're going through, and be sensible. What we don't want to do is put ourselves back here. So we've got to be smart about how we do it. It's got to be step changes all the way. We've got things that we need to address, the pathway we need to address. We want Salford audience playing for Salford. Same model as Saints, same model as Wigan. We need to test the water and make sure we get Salford audience playing for Salford. If you look at the Saints squad, their first 24, 25 is no different than us. I keep saying, we've only got 25, is too thin. The only difference between us and Saints or Wigan is numbers 26 to 40 come out of their academy, and they're tough kids who train with the first team. We don't have that. So we've got to do that. We've got to allocate some funds towards making that happen. It's a longer term project, but it's got to happen. We've got to look at the facilities. We've got to look at what assets we've got. All boring stuff. I know it doesn't sell season tickets. But at the same time, we'll keep pulling off an Orphaluma. We'll bring a prop in. And we will be competitive this year. I think you saw that Leeds. I think that once we start to gel, how big is Nelly McDonald? It's not even fair, is it? He should be handicapped. It's not fair. Someone should tie his shoelaces together or something. It's just, it's ridiculous. But that's the way that we will play. We'll do that all season. We'll do that all season. And we'll have a real dig, because that's what we do with this group of players and this coaching team. We have a dig. They won't take a backward step.
Boring is good, as long as we get the result.
Yeah, and I think you've got to keep your eyes on the prize. So the prize is, can we be self-sustaining and stop? Look, what really narks me about this club is this narrative, little old Salford. And I know it works for us. Nick, one of yours, Rob, opportunity club gives opportunity. We keep doing it. We've lived on it for about 20 years. I think I even sent out a text to Parky the other day. That's what we do. I get it. I'd love us not to be. I would. I don't. The little old Salford narrative just jars me off. I want us. One thing we've got to do is get away from that and be proud of what we are. Head up, chest out. We're Salford. We're coming in. We're going to give you a good hiding. And that's where we've got to be. We've got to go to the totally wicked thinking we're going to win, because we've got the squad and the backup to do it. And that isn't this week. It's not next week. But at some point over the course of the next 3, 4, 5 years, that's where we've got to go to. We've got to go there. And we've got to start the season thinking we can compete for silverware. Got to. Because that's how you sell tickets.
Through this podcast now, we can see the direction and the end target. With the TV deals coming in and everything like that, we're starting to grow like a phoenix while the sport is growing at the same time. So it might be an ideal time for us and the sport to go into orbit.
Well, I think going back to what you said about boring, we had excitement with a guy who came in who promised the world and delivered nothing really. In fact, less than nothing. And I'm still waiting for my water park that's never been built. But
Other side of the river, someone else is building it now, mate.
Well, yeah, but we don't. We've had drama. We've had drama for years. Even the last 12 months is drama. Everything. And to go through a period of just being Salford, just be a rugby club. Don't be the ones in the press. Don't be the ones that pay. Except for on a Monday morning when you pick up a League Express or something, and it tells you that Salford were dazzling at the weekend, took 2 points off whoever, and that's all we need to know. I think the other thing that people need to stop doing is this finding reasons why we're not who we are or whatever, or having a dig constantly that Salford don't do this, Salford can't do. We need to build something. It's all right throwing money at something straight away and saying, oh, well, like the marketing, let's say, well, okay, we'll go out and we'll market the club, we'll do this, but that money's gone. And if nobody turns up, we're in trouble anyway, but we've still got to pay bills. Let's get to a position now where all that just flows and things just happen naturally. And people need to just sort of, I'm going to say, just lay off. Just go and enjoy your rugby. If you don't enjoy it, don't go. Simple. I know we don't want that, but I've had a lot of people in the last few years who sat near me or come to me at the end of a game and say, oh, I don't know why, but if it makes you that upset, but don't sour everybody else's water with it, because what we're trying to do now, you can see, like Rob just said, there is a direction, there's something, there's a plan. And it's not going to be this year, like you said. I mean, we could make the playoffs this year, who knows? There's a lot of, from what I saw Friday night, I think there's a lot of teams very worried about us in the way we play. And we will get better. But it might not be this year, but next year we'll improve. And the year after we can improve. And it's not going to be a spike and then back to nothing. It's going to be a steady sort of upward gradient now. And we're heading, hopefully, to where we think we belong and where I thought for 40 odd years that we should be. And like you said, we've had false promises and this, but it's all been built on nothing. Now this stadium and everything that's going on behind the scenes, from what we've said, me, Rob, Paul, for the last couple of years on the podcast, that you can see how the club has changed. It is a different animal now to the one that we all knew, we've all known. And it's time just to back it. Let's just get on board.
I think it's the nature of social media now, isn't it? That people. I mean, I've took a fair few direct hits myself over the course of the last 6 months. Some of them, a couple of them, I've got to be honest, made me think, why am I doing this? I don't need this in my life, if I'm being honest. But then you sulk for an hour or two. I'd be lying if I said I tend not to read them very much. I don't go on Twitter anywhere near as much as I used to, because I think there is probably some individuals who it doesn't matter what I do. But that's life. That's social media. It is what it is. And if some bloke who's got a profile that's a picture of Mr. Bean or a cartoon wants to call me a fat this and all that kind of stuff, then what can you do? All I will say is we're building. We are building. You've got to put your blocks in place to get you to where you need to be, and you can see where we're at. I'll give you another example. I know we make a bet out of Ghana and Serbia and all that kind of stuff. There's a reason for it. Everything's got a reason. There's a reason for everything. So Super League Plus, you get 15% of the money when you log into it and you do your subscription and you announce yourself as a Salford Red Devils fan. 15% of your money comes to us. So we want Ghanaians and Serbians and Ipswich Jets people and Ponsonby and Florida to log on and say they're from Salford, because there ain't enough Salford audience to do it. So we're spreading that, but double down on that. We're shortly we'll announce Jaff, who's going to be our first ever overseas development officer. He's going to be a development officer full time in Ghana. Talent search, creating a pathway. You tell me when Salford thought like that ever. Honestly, and mate, it might be a pipe dream. We might get nothing out of it, but the whole idea is the gap between Ghana and us is too big, and the visa rules too deep. So if you can get someone who's got talent, the pit stop is Red Star Belgrade, because the visa rules are easier. So they go Ghana, Red Star Belgrade. Can they play at that level? Because that's the next step up. Yes, they can. Okay, let's put a bit of effort in and get them over them. So there is a logic to it. It isn't just We'll put a pin in a map and see what we can come up with. But, you know, so we will announce it's imminent. There's an exclusive. We're going to have a full-time development officer in Ghana, just to grow the game in Africa. We're the first clubs to ever put a footprint, rugby league clubs put a footprint in Africa. I'm proud of that. I'd love to get in China as well, by the way. If you know any Chinese people that are connected, I'd love a bit of that. It's
been an amazing podcast, Paul. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for giving us all the information. You know, it's been brilliant.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for your time.